Pro days are in the books for the top four quarterbacks in the 2023 NFL draft class. Will Levis and Anthony Richardson were the last two to go, and we're here to break it all down for you. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast presented by Fan Nation on SI.com. My name is Andrew Moore, and I'm joined here by my fellow writer and co host of the Horseshoe Huddle podcast, Drake Wally. Drake, it's currently March 30th. We are less than a month away from the NFL draft. It's officially draft season. The entire month of April, we are just going to be talking about the draft nonstop. How you doing, man? Are you ready to talk about Will Levis and Anthony Richardson tonight? I know we're going to have a lively chat, so let's get to it.
Yeah, I'm actually not only am I ready to talk about Will Levis and Anthony Richardson's pro days and just kind of compare the two, how they're different and how they are very similar actually in their situations, but I'm also just ready for a freaking quarterback, man. I'm
I am
like,
too.
ever since the trade from Carolina, everything's just, damn it, Frank Reich, you leave the Colts and then you throw everything up on its head. So thank you so much, Frank, wherever you're at.
Man, it's going to be a fun one because if I'm being honest, I really think that one of these two guys will be leading the Indianapolis Colts next year, or at least in that quarterback room for the Indianapolis Colts. Sky, yes, we are live. Our last episode was not live. We were talking to Isaiah McKenzie, the new wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts. Got so much feedback from you guys. Seems like you guys all loved it. We really appreciate all the support. It was so much fun. Again, shout out to Isaiah McKenzie for coming on the show. And hopefully he comes back on. We might have some more guests down the line. But glad you guys all enjoyed it. And Isaiah McKenzie, I think, is going to be a fan favorite of the Colts. Would you agree, Drake?
Oh, I think that he's going to be put into a situation to not only best anything that he's done as far as statistical, but I think that there's a chance he might return punts, might return kicks. Maybe him and Flowers kind of split something. But the locker room, that's where I'm really excited for him, is he's going to bring an energy that this team needed all of last year.
Absolutely. Tom Williams is here, wants to talk about Anthony Richardson. We're certainly going to have a lot to talk about that. Wyatt Law, always good to see you, buddy. Yes, we're going to talk about Morocco Brown as well. Gary is here. Go Colts, he says. Mike, can we please fast forward to the draft? Right there with you, man. We've got Steve getting any one of the four rookies. He doesn't want Lamar, wants a rookie contract, so it's going to be crazy. Eddie, what's up to you, my guy? And if you guys haven't, go ahead and read that ticker down at the bottom. It's coming across. Go ahead and follow Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, or like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Follow at Colts on FN on Twitter. Subscribe to that YouTube channel and hit that bell so you know whenever we're going live, whenever Shad and Destin are going live, because April is going to be probably our busiest month in terms of draft coverage. We got the third host here, Stats Matt, doing great as always. Maria, we love you as well. Rich is here. We're going to have a fun time. And then just a reminder, the super chat button is now available since you guys got us to 1,000 subscribers. If you want us to answer your question right away, if you want us to feature your comment, get a shout out, hit that super chat button. We really do appreciate it. And let's have some fun tonight, Drake. Let's just dive right in. We're going to start talking about Will Levis's pro day. Will Levis finished up his pro day last week at the University of Kentucky. It was on Friday while I was at the Notre Dame Pro Day. Mr. Will Levis put on a show there at Kentucky. We had Colts area scout Mike Lacey in attendance, who was also the scout that was there at Ohio State to watch C.J. Stroud, and then he was there in Tennessee today, where Hendon Hooker didn't do anything at his pro day, but I'm sure Mike Lacey will be meeting with Hendon Hooker while he is down there. So, Drake, let's dive right into Will Levis's pro day. Before we get into the pros and cons of what exactly we saw, just give me an overall picture or an overall arching theme of what you saw from Will Levis on Friday.
100 miles per hour. Absolutely ridiculous capabilities. I feel like the way that I viewed him, At the combine, I feel like the way that I viewed him changed in a positive way after the combine, and it changed again in a more positive way after the pro day. So, I, I mean, dude's powerful, dude's athletic. The guy has got a ridiculous arm. I mean, he's still raw, but you can definitely see, in all admittance to everybody out there that's listening, Will Levis could have some serious success in the league if he's put in the right system. So what I saw is a potentially, a successful quarterback if he's just, again, put in the right system and if he learns the correct way, because he's still going to have to learn.
I'd agree. And when you look at Will Levis, what I saw when I rewatched the NFL Plus coverage of the pro day is I saw improvements from Will Levis. I saw a lot of his lower body matching his top half. Now, was he perfect on the day? No, I don't think so. None of these quarterbacks are going to be perfect. They're going to miss a throw here or there. Every single one of these guys has. But I was very encouraged as far as with these pro days, what you want to see a lot again, kind of what I was alluding to when we were talking about these guys at the combine that were throwing. You don't want to see necessarily, you're not paying attention to see if every ball is completed or make sure nothing hits the ground. What you want to see is their mechanics, and you saw Will Levis have a strong base. You saw him being able to rotate a little bit more. Yes, he's gonna miss some throws. He was behind on some. He There were other times where it seemed like he was trying to aim the ball rather than just throw it naturally. But I really liked what I saw from a footwork standpoint with Will Levis, and I think, and we'll get into Anthony Richardson as well and kind of what I saw with his mechanics today. But that's what you want to see. I mean, you should have really close to perfect mechanics when there's nobody rushing you, and you're just standing there throwing routes on air. There's really no excuse not to look really good with their mechanics, and if you don't look that good, then I think it's a problem. So we got our first super chat of the evening. Nathan says, I'm a big Hendon Hooker fan. Give me him and trade number 4. I've seen a lot of
Yep.
Colts fans
Picking up.
talking about that. Nathan, we really appreciate the donation, the super chat there. You're always one of the good ones, buddy. We really do appreciate it. So before we'll answer this real quick. Drake, do you think that's a possibility for the Colts? And I'll keep this up here while we answer this question. Do you think the Colts could trade back from 4 and pick up Hendon Hooker later in the draft?
The way that I'll quick so that it's not taking too long. The quickest way to respond to this is if they don't have. I completely believe and agree with Jake Arthur, our own Jake Arthur, on this. Is that if they're at number 4 and they see a situation where there's a guy that they do not feel confident in, I could absolutely see them trading back and then potentially falling back to a guy like Hendon Hooker, or who knows what they would do if they trade back. But that would be the first thing I think that they would do. So is it a small opportunity? Excuse me, a small possibility? Yes, but I do think it is still a possibility.
I really don't. I'm going to go the opposite way, and I don't think Hendon Hooker. I mean, of course, you never say never with this Colts team, but I really don't. Unless the Colts are punting on the quarterback position, I think there is a big gap between these top 4 guys and Hendon Hooker. And then when you bring in all the fact that the offense that he ran at Tennessee doesn't really translate to the NFL, he is older. He is coming off of the ACL. I get that he's a nice guy. I get that he is a smart kid. But those are just all the things that are working against you. And even if the Colts do trade back a little bit, there's no guarantee Hendon Hooker will be there, and you don't gamble with the quarterback position. So
True.
I really don't think Hendon Hooker will be a Colt. I think it'll be one of these top 4 quarterbacks, whichever one falls, or if the Colts decide to go and trade up to number 3 to get their guy, we'll just have to see. But Drake, what when we talk about the pros that we saw from Will Levis, what are some of the things that really stood out? I know you said he went 100 miles an hour and he's got that cannon arm, but what were things in particular that stood out from his pro day that you really liked and you think you think it caught the attention of NFL teams?
Well, I mean, the one thing he had to just go out there and make sure that everyone was reminded of is his incredible arm strength. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get that out of the way. The guy can hit any throw from pretty much anywhere. And I also think that he had, as you had mentioned when we were watching him at the combine, that ball just leaves at a million miles an hour. That guy does not have any, and will not, by the way, have any issue with a quick release. I think it'll be refined a little bit. I think he's going to get a quick release down, no problem. I don't think he's ever going to have any velocity issues. He can really hit anything on the field with his arm strength. And
Mm-hmm.
now I also think that he's got incredible athleticism, and he can escape that pocket, and he's not going to be easy to bring down, because this is the kind of guy that'll stay in there, and he'll take one right on the chin from a defensive tackle as long as he makes that throw. So he's got the toughness. And he's also great at throwing while mobile. I mean, if you talk about a lot of these guys, some of these guys, they get out there and they start moving with their feet, and it doesn't match up, like you said, with their body. Well, now that's even harder sometimes when you're moving away, running away from a defensive end or whoever's pursuing. I don't think Will Levis is going to have a problem throwing on the run. So again, a lot of pros, a lot of upside. And I think that, again, and I'll say this till I'm blue in the face, the guy has potential to be a star in the league.
Yeah, I would agree there. Wyatt Law, I love this quote. Wyatt Law brought the receipts tonight. I believe we're going to get the best player in this draft at number 4. That's what Chris Ballard
It's a
said
great quote.
at the NFL Combine. But yeah, all the tools are there for Will Levis. The arm strength, the toughness. We didn't really see a lot of the mobility with Will Levis last year because of him playing through his injuries, but when Will Levis is healthy, he has a very physical style of running with the football, and he is mobile. He's not a statue back there in the pocket. I would say he's probably he's up there with probably being one of the best rushing quarterbacks in this class, because once he gets upfield, I mean, you see from his 2021 tape, he was able to hurdle guys, he was able to truck over guys. Like, Will Levis is not just a guy that will go down easy.
Andrew
With the
Luck,
football.
anybody?
Andrew Luck, Carson Wentz. I'm not saying that as a. I know
No.
Carson Wentz is a little bit of a touchy subject with Colts fans, but as far as his physical style of running, you can see that with Will Levis. It's going to be. I think it's going to be fun to watch Will Levis, see how he goes. Again, I think it's going to need to be also the right situation too, because I think Will Levis, with his experience running a pro style offense that at Kentucky, that's definitely an advantage. But as far as some of the maybe some of the cons or some of the things that he still needs to work on, again, he still needs to clean up some of his mechanics, which that's not a big deal. I think he definitely can, from everything I've seen. It's a lot of it's going to be around the decision making. The decision making with that football, making sure you're not just relying on your cannon arm to try to float it into double and triple coverage, because a lot of times in the NFL those do get picked off. So that's what I want to see. Is I want to see better decision making out of Will Levis as he continues to grow and gets more comfortable in the league wherever he does end up.
Well, and something else that was that is a pro is not just, let's take a step away from the athleticism. It was a lot of fun to listen to our own Destin Adams kind of stand there, right there when he was taking questions. This is a guy who is going to be obsessed. He is going to be obsessed with getting better. He's probably heard the noise. He's probably heard that he's fourth out of 4 or 5 or whatever. And so I'm telling you, this is a guy who's driven to prove people wrong, and he's driven to show that he can improve, and he wants to continuously get better. And also, he did pretty good with a very tumultuous situation that was going on in Kentucky. And he still went out there again, took some hits on the chin, and still played pretty well. So give him some stability, give him weapons, and just get him a guy like Gardner Minshew. If he comes to the Colts, I'm telling you, Minshew's a perfect fit for a guy like Levis. So I think that in a Colts situation, he could have some, serious chances to succeed with Shane Steichen.
Right. And I want to talk about this. Wyatt Law says Levis's photos before and after his injury rehab are crazy. He's cut like a well-trained boxer. Body fat has to be in the single digits. He'll hurt you if you aren't meaning business tackling him.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Will Levis is a physically intimidating player. He's a big dude. And again, it's with all of these quarterbacks, it's going to depend on situation It's going to depend on coaching they get. It's going to depend on the system that is put around them. So with Will Levis, I mean, he's not my top quarterback in this class, but I do think that if the Colts did take Will Levis, I don't know if he starts from day one or not. That's yet to be seen. But I do think that there is a path for success in the NFL with Will Levis. Do I think he has the ceiling to be a top 5 quarterback in this league? No, probably not. Do I think he can possibly be close to top 10? Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and you've made a comp for him that, on the low end, of course, we'll just start with that and get it out of the way, that he's like, after the injury, Carson Wentz.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But on the other end, Matt Stafford, that's a pretty freaking good ceiling to me. And Stafford hovered around that top 10. Well, Stafford also is a Super Bowl winning quarterback
Mm-hmm.
now. So, I mean, I'm telling you, that's not a bad comp at all. So I think at the highest level, Will Levis could absolutely be successful. He has every single tool. And like you said, people aren't going to want to tackle him in the open field because he's not going to try to make a miss. He's just going to run right over him.
Right. And I was talking to Zach Hicks, our colleague, the other day about Will Levis, and he said, I think in the middle, if you put it between my two comps, in the middle would be about Ryan Tannehill. And I really
Yeah,
did like that.
that's not bad.
So before we move on to Anthony Richardson, Drake, what are the chances you think Will Levis is the quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts next season?
Well, I had way too many, like for both pros and cons, but just to hit a couple of those cons, I do think he needs to slow down. He's going 100 miles an hour, even on the short throws sometimes. He just needs to kind of dial that back a little bit. And the left side of his body, it is still an issue. For some reason, that footwork closes off that like left
Mm-hmm.
quarter. It's going to take velocity off his throws. Those are going to get taken away for pick sixes. So I think that that's just some areas he needs to work on. I do think that there is a really good chance he becomes a Colt. I think that if they're sitting there at 4, and hypothetically, let's say 3 out of the 4 quarterbacks have been taken, I do not think they're going to have an issue with saying, hey, you know what, Will Levis, we like him. We think that we think that Shane Steichen can do something with him. We got weapons. We got a running game to acclimate him to the league by also utilizing Jonathan Taylor and helping him maybe get his legs going for a part of the offensive game plan. And I do think that he's more like Gardner Minshew than Minshew is like Anthony Richardson. So I think that it might be a better fit, maybe for the backup quarterback. But I'd say there's like a 60 to 65% chance that he's going to become the quarterback, which is good.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting because I think I don't know if it's that high that there's a chance Will Levis is the quarterback for the Colts, but I do think he is going to be one of the two that it ends up being because I'm sticking with my predictions and what I've heard. I think CJ Stroud goes number 1 to the Panthers, and I think Bryce Young goes number 2 to the Houston Texans. So that leaves the Colts if they want to trade up, then they possibly have the option to choose between either Anthony Richardson or Will Levis, or stick at 4. See if another team jumps them, or if Arizona stays put, what might happen there. But I do think that Will Levis will be one of the options available there whenever the Colts do pick. And it's going to be, do the Colts think that he's worthy of it? Do they think he's got the upside to lead this team? And that's what the Colts decision makers are going to have to figure out. So before we move along to Anthony Richardson, I wanted to take this time to talk about and make sure you guys pre-order the Indy Draft Guide. So the Indy Draft Guide is coming out very, very soon. It launches April 10th, so you can pre-order that. 225 plus write-ups on prospects, all the top guys in the draft, some of the guys that aren't the top that you might not know about, and their fits with the Indianapolis Colts. So go ahead and click the link in the description, and it takes you right there to pre-order that draft guide from guys like myself, Zach Hicks, Destin Adams, all working really hard to get this out for you guys, and it's going to be what we use all draft season. So make sure you get your copy. So
I'm using it. I already got one. I'm definitely
there you go. There you go. Drake's already got his pre-ordered. So why wouldn't you pre-order it? Why wouldn't you buy it? So let's move it along to Anthony Richardson here. Had his pro day today at the University of Florida, showed off his athleticism, his big arm, just like Will Levis did last Friday. Drake, what stood out to you about Anthony Richardson today at his pro day?
So I mean, what stood out is that obviously I think he has the most powerful arm that I've seen at a pro day personally. He's got all of the tools to escape the pocket. He's got I think that Daniel Jeremiah multiple times said that it looked like a Nerf football in Anthony Richardson's hands. So obviously he's got all of the tools. I think that the fact that Morocco Brown was there, I know that sometimes people can see that as like, oh, well, that's a giveaway. And it is true that he is sent to a lot of the places where the Colts are interested, like a little more than just your average level of interest, because they want the absolute best takes. But I think at the end of the day, Anthony Richardson showed everything as we kind of figured that he can do, and he did it all on a very high level. But he also showed those things that were like, yeah, you and I were like, he's gonna struggle with this, and this, and he did. So I think that Anthony Richardson showed everything that he can do and things he needs to work on. So not a lot of surprises to me.
Yeah, the fact that Morocco Brown was there is really huge.
Yeah, that's a massive
When the Colts send Morocco Brown to a pro day, because Morocco Brown is basically, if you guys don't know, he is basically the third in command behind Chris Ballard and Ed Dodds, the assistant general manager. Morocco Brown is the chief personnel executive for the Colts. He received that promotion last offseason. So when the Colts send him, because Chris Ballard and Ed Dodds do not normally go to pro days. They just don't. That's never been their prerogative. So, and we've got Sarah here. Sarah, we love you. You're always one of our biggest supporters. Thank you so much. If you guys haven't yet, go follow Sarah on Twitter.
She rocks.
She's rocks. She absolutely does. She's a rock star. And she's on with you. She says, well, Drake, I'm on the Anthony Richardson train. And I think a lot of Colts fans are starting to see that. They're starting to really like the possibility of Anthony Richardson being an Indianapolis Colt. But getting back to Morocco Brown here, he was at the Georgia Pro Day, and we know the Colts have significant interest in Keely Ringo, the cornerback out of Georgia. They've met with him multiple times already, and then him being there at the Florida Pro Day when the Colts sent area scouts to Ohio State, to Alabama, to Kentucky's pro day. It definitely means something. It doesn't mean that means that the Colts have Anthony Richardson number one on their board and it's a guarantee that he's going to be wearing a Colts uniform or anything like that. But it does mean that the Colts have significant interest in Anthony Richardson.
Well, and the thing is, it's under, because like, look, Ballard has multiple times kind of like said in different ways, always take the traits. If you look up traits in the dictionary, and it's an NFL Draft 2023 edition of the dictionary, you're going to see only pictures of Anthony Richardson. That is literally what everybody's been talking about. It's the traits. It's what you're going to see later on, not what you see now. So it's not surprising to see Morocco Brown there, honestly. It's also not surprising to see him at Georgia because Keely Ringo has high traits, and he is a freakishly athletic defensive back, which, again, fits that Ballard mold.
Absolutely. And I think for me, watching Anthony Richardson today at that pro day, it really, nothing really surprised me, but it kind of just reinforced everything that we already knew. We know he can throw the ball an absolute mile. It has the strongest arm in this class, and that's including Will Levis. But you can also see how he really needs to work on his touch. He really needs to work on his ball placement. I did like his footwork a lot better today than what I have seen. It seemed like he had a much better base. But it does seem like he needs to just learn to throw with some touch. Not everything has to be a rocket. Maybe try to lead his receivers a little bit on the short to intermediate area. Things like that. So, I mean, when you look at Anthony Richardson, he's easily the biggest athlete or the best athlete out of this quarterback group. He's the biggest, he's the strongest, he's the fastest, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to call it. But throwing the football, there's some work that really needs to be done on Anthony Richardson's end, and I think it's going to start out with really honing in those mechanics, learning when to take some stuff off of that football, when to really let it loose. Things like that, but for the people saying that Anthony Richardson is a project that he might need to sit a couple years, I've even seen that online. That's not the case. Anthony Richardson is not near the project that people think he is. But I do think that he probably won't be ready to start day one in this Colts offense.
Well, if you look at the pros, you're talking about uncanny arm strength. I think it's the best in the draft. You're talking about great accuracy with deep throws. You're talking about he's got he's got a better throwing motion than I thought. And in fact, watching it closely, and Daniel Jeremiah was like, "Wow, that's a better throwing motion than I can remember him having." So there's been improvements already made. It pops out of his arm just like Will Levis. And I do think that he can effortlessly, just like Levis, again, there's more similarities between these two than everybody thinks. He can hit any area on the field with body positioning. I do think, though, that just like Will, he tends to go too hard, like you said, with short throws. He tends to turn it into a heater and tries to put the ball. It seemed like sometimes, I jokingly said this, but it's true. Sometimes on those shorter routes, it seems like he was trying to put a hole through the receiver. It's like, look, you don't need to do that. And so I do think if we're talking about if you want to go with the side of athleticism, day one, it's Anthony Richardson all day. If you're talking about between these two, who I agree with you, Andrew, I think these are the two guys that the Colts are going to choose between. If you're choosing who's going to be more ready quicker, it's probably Will Levis, because he's a far more polished passer, and you kind of see a little still of that whipping motion in Anthony Richardson's throwing mechanics. So I like the footwork, but obviously, like you said, when it comes to throwing, if he comes to the Colts, Shane Steichen is going to be with him every second of every day before week one.
And I love what Rich said here: run game and vertical passing game. I think if you put Anthony Richardson in an offense like the Eagles ran last year, you put him there with Jonathan Taylor, and you use even some power run with Anthony Richardson, and then you use his capability to throw the deep ball to your advantage, you can have success with him right away. Would not be surprised at all if we saw the Colts draft Anthony Richardson, had him sit for half of the year, maybe even longer, and then towards the end of the year, we see Anthony Richardson come in, Gardner Minshew go to the bench, and then you see Anthony Richardson start getting his feet wet. And then year number two, it's about getting everything around Anthony Richardson, because I think we really need to be realistic about where this Colts team is going to be next year. This Colts team probably is not going to be very good. And the moves that the Colts have done this offseason have really reflected that. They haven't gone after the huge name free agents. They haven't been signing guys to just 1-year deals like they're trying to make a run this year. All of these moves have been made with the thought of 2024 and 2025 in mind. They're expecting a rookie quarterback to come in and go through and take his lumps. They're not expecting to compete right away. You talk about how Jim Irsay himself, the guy that's always the optimistic, he was talking earlier this week at the owners' meetings, and Jim Irsay, he always talks about winning Lombardis. Well, he took a different stance this week. He talked about, we're not on the level of Kansas City or Buffalo, Philadelphia, but there's opportunities in this division that you can make some noise. So you're not really hearing Jim Irsay talk about that, because that's just not realistic for where this Colts team is. So I don't necessarily think that people need to be focusing in on which quarterback can immediately help the Colts next year. I think you need to start looking at the quarterbacks that can. I mean, helping next year would be a plus, obviously, but they're not going to write off a quarterback if he's not going to be ready for 2023. They're thinking for 2024, 2025, and so on, trying to find the best quarterback for the future. And look who decided to show up. Brandon Moses. How about that ride in? Guess that's why they call it Sin City. Good to see you, pal. Thanks for joining us here on a live episode for once.
That's right.
But Drake, what do you think? Do you think that this Colts team is looking for a quarterback that can help right away, or is it a quarterback that and like the Colts have said, you need to kind of project what he's going to look like within the next 5 years?
Initially I would have said that they wanted somebody that could probably throw right away named CJ Stroud. But now that trade has happened, I think that they were also very open to any one of these four guys. I think that they're very open to just kind of looking at 2023 like, hey, we got Gardner Minshew. We've got a guy that's been starting his whole career, low turnover guy. Eventually, it's probably going to be like week 12. You'll see him sitting at like 4-7 or 4-8 or something. I think, kind of like you said, that's when I think you'll see Anthony Richardson or Will Levis or whoever, because I think that they're realizing like Jim Irsay, I think, kind of realizes that these are one of the two guys he's going to get. Don't get me wrong. There's a chance you could get Bryce. There's a chance you could get CJ. But I think that sitting at, okay, you're going to trade up to maybe 3 or you're going to sit at 4. It's really Levis or Richardson are starting to get linked consistently to the Colts. So I think that they're kind of realizing, hey, either way we go, even if it's like maybe Levis is ready a little bit sooner, it's going to be a little bit of a wait for either guy.
Yeah, and that's where I think the Colts are right now, and I think they know that. So last question on Anthony Richardson, the same one that we used to end the Will Levis talk. Drake, do you think Anthony Richardson, or what are the chances Anthony Richardson is on the Colts this fall?
I think he's got the best chance. I'm not even saying that because I've been an Anthony Richardson guy since like probably the very start of the year, maybe even like late last year, but I'm saying it because I think it's legitimately the highest chance. I also will follow this up and say I think Levis is the second highest chance. And so I just think that Ballard goes with those traits. And if we hear traits in this draft, who's the first person every single person thinks of? It's Anthony Richardson. So I think they're pretty high. I think that the Colts have Jonathan Taylor, Zach Moss, and Deion Jackson. They have Shane Steichen, who's molded quarterbacks, developed running back groups, molded tight ends, wide receivers. He said, I want a vertical offense that's explosive. We pass to, I think it's pass to gain yards and run to win? It's something similar to that.
We throw to score, run to win.
Run to win. That to me tells me Anthony Richardson. Okay, that says to me that they've been looking at Anthony Richardson. I also will say on the off chance, they could have been talking about Will Levis too, because again, he's also an athletic guy. He's got a high ceiling, maybe not as high due to the traits. You've also got a raw prospect though. So both these guys, they're different, but they are a little more similar than I think people are thinking about.
If I had to put money on it today, I'd say Anthony Richardson is going to be the pick. They're at 3 or 4, wherever, but I do think the Colts take Anthony Richardson in this draft. I think, I mean, you see when Anthony Richardson's when all of his mechanics are in line, he can put a ball right on the money. It's a dot when his mechanics are lined, and that's the biggest thing, is just the inconsistency with his mechanics, and that can be attributed to him. Again, he's only 20 years old. He's still learning how to play football pretty much and get those mechanics down, and he doesn't have very many starts in college. So, and again, that's a risk because you don't have a huge body of work to look at. But the thing is, if Anthony Richardson hits on his ceiling, this guy's going to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL because he has all the physical tools to do it. We've seen when everything lines up, we see the accuracy there, and we can see him really dominate. So that's the thing. He's got the highest ceiling, but he's also got the lowest floor, because if he doesn't hit, you're going to have a very inaccurate quarterback. You're going to have a guy that really only relies on his legs, that can't take speed off the ball or anything like that. So that's going to be the big decision that the Colts need to discuss here. And I see this saying, the pure delusion. Hey man, we can have disagreements, but you gotta be fair with your things. Just because I like Anthony Richardson a little bit better does not mean that I don't like Will Levis, because
Oh
like I
yeah,
said, I
yeah.
think the Colts can have success
Oh yeah.
with any team or with any quarterback in this draft. It's just how they're gonna structure the offense around him, the coaching that he gets, and really that's with every quarterback. Situation matters so much. And it's that's Matt, open-minded is the word. Thank you, buddy. You do have to be open-minded. You can't just be stuck on any one of these quarterbacks. There is no Andrew Luck in this draft class. There is no Joe Burrow. There is no Trevor Lawrence. There is no home run prospect. Each one of these guys is going to take coaching. Each one of them is going to have to be in the right situation with the right talent around them. And that's the thing. I think for what the Colts situation is, obviously my quarterback one in this class is CJ Stroud. I've talked about that all draft cycle. But CJ Stroud's going to be a Carolina Panther. Let's just get that out there. So the next guy that I think is going to be the best fit for the Colts, because of who their coaching staff is and because of the guy that's building this offense around that quarterback, and Shane Steichen, Anthony Richardson. He's done it with Jalen Hurts. I think he could do it with Anthony Richardson. So if the Colts did get Anthony Richardson, I'd be ecstatic. I'd be pretty happy with Will Levis. But I think if I had to put a number on it right now, I'm leaning 70 to 75% confident Anthony Richardson will be the pick night one of the draft for the Colts.
Well, and again, we go back to this. I mean, Shane Steichen's worked with every type of quarterback you can, but he's fresh off of Jalen Hurts. He's fresh off of a guy who was raw and couldn't really throw coming into the NFL. And man, I remember watching the wild card game in 2021 going, oh my gosh, this guy can't throw. Like, that was one of the reasons Tampa just cruised right on by. Well, then you get him with Steichen. He learns those throwing mechanics, learns how to link up the legs with the body and the torso and the torque and the throw. And all of a sudden, you've got a guy who is destroying everybody, regardless of how they got to the Super Bowl. They got there, and they almost won. So I think that the guy that fits the best right now, I think Steichen has had a lot of say, and I think that it is going to be Anthony Richardson. But again, I think he could also have some serious success with a downward passer like Will Levis and a physical guy like him.
Lucas hits the nail on the head. It's really inconvenient not having a Hall of Fame quarterback. I mean, that's true. It is. But then I think, and Wyatt Law, man, you've been on it tonight. Here is another one. Say, when there's no generational quarterback, take the one with the highest traits and mold that
Interesting.
Yep. Very, very, very smart.
I haven't heard that said yet. So
yeah. So we will see. Rich, just 28 days to go. Just 28 days. And eventually we are going to have an episode dedicated to each one of these guys here within the next couple of weeks. We'll go through the top four. We'll probably even do a Hendon Hooker episode, because I know a lot of fans want to talk about
Wyatt Law likes Hendon Hooker.
He does. Wyatt Law and I have a bet going still. As Syria
says, I don't know how to respond to Hendon Hooker.
but and then of course we can't end the episode without talking about Lamar Jackson. In the latest Colts news and rumors, I think we got a glimpse behind the curtain of what this Colts franchise is thinking about Lamar Jackson. Last episode, we talked about what Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard had said about Lamar Jackson, but that was before owner Jim Irsay spoke to the media about possibly acquiring Lamar Jackson. And what he said was, I mean, we've heard that Lamar Jackson doesn't want a fully guaranteed contract, but he does want more guaranteed money than what was offered and what was accepted by Deshaun Watson. And so you're talking about probably $250 million guaranteed, which is a lot. It's a lot of money. And Jim Irsay already came out and while he said money isn't a problem, he thinks fully guaranteed contracts just isn't the way to go in this league. And this is kind of what I talked about on Monday's episode. Just the way Jim Irsay respects the history of the league so much. I don't think that he was going to really go out there and be the one to back up the Browns and give another fully guaranteed contract.
Well, and also the situation that the Colts are in. I mean, you know what? I'll go with the simple reason I think that a simple set of recent occurrences that have happened that make me think they're not going to go for him is that they're cutting guys. I mean, they're getting rid of guys like Matt Ryan. They're getting rid of guys like Nick Foles. They're saving up money. They're getting rid of guys like Stephon Gilmore, and they're allowing guys like Paris Campbell to leave the team. And so to me, this says that it's not a, I think we've discussed this, it's not a rebuild. It's more of like a retooling. And it just doesn't tell me, hey, Lamar Jackson is the guy that they're going to be going after. And plus the fact that he said he's not really into the whole guaranteed contract thing. That tells me he also doesn't want Lamar, because Lamar is this close to turning into Le'Veon Bell, in my opinion, and having to sit out a year if he continues to negotiate and, the Ravens can't meet a deal. The last thing I wanted to say is something you mentioned, is that just because right now the Ravens and Lamar are not on the right terms, give it a little bit of time. He's a franchise quarterback. They're not just going to let him go without trying every last tactic to get him on the team. Trust me. So there's still a chance he'll be a Raven.
Right. Wyatt Law asks, should Ballard draft a second quarterback later? The kid from UCLA. I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't, because of the bringing in Gardner Minshew, and there's two other quarterbacks still on the roster. I know a lot of people have asked, why hasn't Nick Foles been cut yet? That's probably because there's not a deadline for Nick Foles to be cut. So the Colts are just holding out and seeing if he does retire, because there's no deadline for when they do need to cut him. And then Sam Ellinger's still on the roster. So when you have Sam Ellinger still on the roster, he's a kid that's cheap. They really like Sam Ellinger as far as what he brings to the locker room, and they want to keep developing him. So I would only expect one quarterback drafted by the Colts at number 4 or number 3. And there's just too many other holes for them to use a second pick on a quarterback. But I just think that with Jim Irsay's comments and then him saying how they would rather draft a rookie and get a young quarterback in there, he talked about the advantages of having a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract and being able to build around him, because you're not spending so much money on that quarterback position. Just gives them a lot of different options. So, and yes, I know Lamar Jackson is a bona fide superstar. And he would put the Colts up there as far as contending for this division right away. He absolutely would. It's just, do you think that there's always the chance that the Baltimore matches as well? So yes, you try to give those two first round picks. The Colts could try to do it before the draft, but I think why not, when you're in this position and you have the ability to build around a rookie quarterback, you got to go do it. That's what I think Jim Irsay is thinking right now.
Well, and if you look at, again, I go back to this, Shane Steichen is the guy that they're looking at, like, what are you going to do with this new quarterback? So we talk about Rivers, we talk about Herbert, we talk about Hurts. Well, 2 of those 3 guys he worked with as rookies. Okay. He worked with them when they were raw, and he got 1 to Rookie of the Year, and he surpassed the rookie amount, like the rookie record for touchdown passes. And the other guy was labeled that he can't throw, and he almost won a freaking Super Bowl against the guy that everybody heralds for how good he throws. So I'm telling you that it makes more sense for a guy like Shane Steichen in this case. If Frank Reich was still the coach, maybe Lamar Jackson makes perfect sense. Okay, because it's like, hey, I'm a seasoned guy. I've developed quarterbacks, but Lamar would be a great fit for me because he knows the NFL, blah blah blah. Shane Steichen has grown 2 quarterbacks. They want him to grow a third. They want him to groom either Levis or Richardson, or of course, I think if Stroud or Young somehow falls, they'll probably pick one of them. But I think that they're looking at Shane Steichen like, hey, groom our rookie. Let's get him to where he needs to be.
Brandon, stop it. Quit being a troll in the chat. And I can tell him that, because if you guys know Brandon from the Colts podcast days, yeah, you would agree with me on there. But
that's awesome though.
Yeah, I think that's where the Colts stand right now. They're considering the Lamar Jackson thing. They wouldn't be doing their jobs if they weren't. But at the end of the day, they're going to draft a quarterback at 3 or 4. They hope it's the right guy. And with Morocco Brown being there today at the Anthony Richardson Pro Day, I think that's a pretty big indicator of who the Colts are targeting at this point. But that's our show for this evening, guys. We really appreciate everybody tuning in. Unboxing Mania, saw you showed up late. Rich, Lucas, Gary, Stats Matt, Wyatt Law, Rich, I think I said you, Brandon, thanks, buddy. Sarah for the super chat. We also had Nathan with the super chat. You guys have been awesome. So please, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and follow us on all the things. Go ahead and like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Go ahead and follow at Colts on FN on Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know whenever Drake and I are going live, whenever Destin and Shad are going live. Go ahead and pre-order the Indie Draft Guide, covering all the things. So before we get on out of here, Drake, I know you've been writing on horseshoehuddle.com. You've got some more pieces out this week. What should the people go check out?
So I've got the one that just released for me is the 3 remaining free agents the Colts should sign, and I think they all 3 fit very well. Could all 3 be Colts? And then one that is going to be releasing soon is the fate of the remaining 6 free agents in-house for the Colts, and I predict if they're going to get re-signed or not.
Yeah, Stats Matt, love the super chat, buddy, right at the end. He's in Walmart, hard to follow along, but hey, you did it. I'm glad you showed up for the show. Awesome. Stats Matt, you're the man. You're the man, brother. A day one listener. So, and Drake's got some fantastic pieces out there. If you haven't checked my pieces out, I did put out a piece about the Isaiah McKenzie interview. And so go check that out. Go watch the video on YouTube, the full interview, if you haven't done so yet. And then get ready, guys, because my second mock draft is going to drop Monday morning. So with all the information that we have gathered from the combine, the pro days, from free agency, how has that changed things? You're going to want to check this one out. So go follow Drake at DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL. We'll be back Monday night to talk more Colts football with you. So everyone, enjoy your weekend.